77 degrees in Milwaukee, on our way up to 87 from the WTMJ Breaking News Center. I'm Greg Matzik. Members of Congress attending emergency security briefings following the killing of a Minnesota state lawmaker.
A list found in the vehicle of Minnesota murder suspect Vance Bolter included the names of politicians well beyond Minnesota, including Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
They called and said the FBI that my name had been on the list.
Some politicians named in the list have canceled public appearances, but Dingell says,
I'm going to keep fighting for the people that I represent.
Against the advice of her staff, she went ahead with a town hall meeting last night in her district. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Assembly Speaker Robin Vos is requesting extra security in the Capitol for the State Assembly session scheduled for Wednesday. Another Wisconsin connection from the Minnesota lawmaker shooting suspect.
Property records show Vance Belter owned a building in Brillion for 4 years. According to our news partners at NBC 26, he purchased a building on Water Street under the name of his business Revo Formation Ministries, Inc. in November 2007. He bought it from Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church, which had previously operated its school there. Church officials say he didn't appear to do much at the building, only clean it out a bit before selling it to High Tech Electrical Services, Inc. in 2012. Jessica Gatso, WTMJ News.
G7 leaders are hoping to contain the Israel-Iran conflict at the summit in Canada. Chair of Faculty at Concordia University Van Mobley was there on Monday, telling Wisconsin's Afternoon News he has heard from President Trump.
You have to put the Middle Eastern conflict in context. The Middle East has been a volatile region for a while. Trump is interested, I think, in all areas, just like as in Ukraine, getting people to the table so that he thinks he's got a better chance, and I think he's right, of having a better outcome if we can get them at the table talking together.
The president left the summit a day early, citing the Middle East situation as the reason why. Milwaukee leaders want buildings built before 1974 retrofit with sprinklers following a deadly apartment fire on Mother's Day. The city's Judiciary and Legislation Committee passing a resolution sponsored by Alderwoman Malele Coggs.
Authorizes our lobbyists and changes our package to include them to be authorized to lobby both at the state and at the federal level for some kind of grant program to be developed to help owners to retrofit their sprinkler systems to bring them up to modern day code.
The Department of Neighborhood Services says state law prevents the city from mandating building requirements that are stricter than those at the state level. And last fall, WTMJ listeners donated more than $80,000 to repair Bayview Medal of Honor recipient Lance Sijon's plane at the Milwaukee airport. And that work is now underway.
The husband-wife team of Andy and Luli Bishop have arrived from Florida and are sanding and painting Lance Sijon's plane.
This is first class, very nicely done, and really happy to be a part of getting it looking good again.
As they work in the elements, they think about Sijon struggling in the Vietnamese jungle.
This should be pristine, considering Lance Sijon's story.
It tugs at our heart. It's a soft spot for us.
Just happy to be a part of it.
It just makes you feel good.
It's about restoring the legacy of a hero. John Mercure, WTMJ News.
The complete renovation of the Sijon plane should be done in less than 3 weeks. Time for news about your money in the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Lots of red here as we hit the mid-morning hours. The Dow is down about 75 points at 42,444. NASDAQ off about 75 at 19,624. And the S&P 500 down about 20 at 6,015. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. It's financial planning at every level. For details, visit annexwealth.com. Sports, traffic, and weather are next. Outdoor Living Unlimited. WTMJ News Time is 10:04.
Start your painting project and save big on everything when you shop at Menards. Pittsburgh's premier interior paint is a paint and primer in one that provides excellent all-around performance and with a durable finish that's easy to clean. Visit us in store or on Menards.com to save big on all Pittsburgh paints and get your project started today. Plus, check out our weekly flyer and find more great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards.
For over a century, local radio has evolved with the needs of the community. From politics to pop culture, we keep you informed, bringing you the most relevant news, online, on air, and on the go. You have trusted us with your news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Trust us to keep moving with you. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress local broadcasting is here to stay.
What's wrong, Ben?
Nicole can read my mind, Arvid.
What?
We were talking about the optionizable Ashton recliner at Penny Mustard.
I said I'd like it in leather, and she said...
Done.
I suggested a different leg color, and she said...
Done.
Spooky.
Look, I don't think Nicole can really read your mind.
Well, not anymore. That's why I'm wearing this tinfoil hat.
It smells fishy.
I wrap my lunch in it.
The Ashton recliner, starting at $28.70 at Penny Mustard.
Showrooms in Milwaukee and Chicago.
PennyMustard.com.
This is Matt Meitner, owner of Sit Means Sit Dog Training. Do you find yourself talking to your dog but feel like she's not listening to you?
Bella, sit!
Are you constantly repeating yourself but she's not following your directions?
Sit! Sit!
Frustrating, isn't it? At Sit Means Sit Dog Training, we want to help you have a happy, confident, and obedient dog, and we also want to make the training process an enjoyable and worthwhile experience. Contact Sit Means Sit today to schedule a free consultation so we can create a customized training program so you are able to have the dog you want and deserve.
Sit Means Sit Dog Training. Sorry, we don't train husbands, wives, or kids.
Time for a WTMJ Sports Update from the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All Sports desk. The Brewers begin a 3-game series against the Cubs tonight in Chicago. Following a successful debut against the Cardinals, rookie pitcher Jacob Misiorowski will make his first Wrigley Field start on Wednesday. Brewers manager Pat Murphy tells Wisconsin's Morning News.
You're obviously concerned about the second start just because was he able to get his feet on the ground, or is it like he's on roller skates? He's not quite solid yet because of the newness of everything and all that's coming at him now. You just hope he can get grounded very quickly.
Coverage begins tonight following the 6 o'clock news on WTMJ. And in the NBA, the Oklahoma City Thunder are one win away from an NBA title after Monday's 120-109 win over the Indiana Pacers. Taking a look at your roads, a WTMJ time saver traffic update. You do have northbound 4145 a blockage of the right shoulder due to a crash. That is right around the construction area, so kind of a double whammy if you're heading northbound on 4145. Delays start just after Watertown Plank, about an 8-minute ride to get up to Highway 175. Southbound, the delays start about 175 through construction and clear up a little bit south of Capitol Drive right around. There's our possible high of 87 degrees. Humid tonight, an overnight low of 65. Mostly cloudy on Wednesday. Some afternoon rain and potentially heavy storms are possible with a high of 73. Partly cloudy on Thursday, just a slight chance of rain and a high of 80. Right now it's 80 degrees and mostly sunny in Sullivan, 79 in Saukville, 77 in Swamico, and 67 at the Avenue. I'm Greg Matzik, Outdoor Living Unlimited. WTMJ News Time is 10:08.
Broadcasting live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios at the Avenue. It's time for Point Taken. Here are your hosts, Steve Scafidi and Kristin Brey.
Hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. It is me, Kristin Brey. Steve is still in Scotland. I did hear from him very quickly this morning. I said, how's the trip? He said, awesome. Visited St. Andrews a couple hours ago. Heading to a Neolithic site in a bit. Beautiful country. Been in about 8 pubs already. So good for you, Steve. But we will see him back in about a week. So looking forward to that. But have a big show planned today. We're going to have a conversation with an author who wrote a book called Misguided, where misinformation starts, how it spreads, and what to do about it. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And then in next hour, we're going to be talking to Carmen Petrie from Sojourner Family Peace Center to talk about why the public safety building in Milwaukee affects a lot more people than just those who work and are detained in it. So really looking forward to our show today. But I wanted to start this first half hour hopefully with some listener participation, because I got an email yesterday, and I get emails, I get DMs a fair amount. Sometimes it's people who are liking what I had to say. Often it is people not liking what I had to say in any of the different forums where I am saying things. But it was a kind of a long email, but I wanted to read it because, one, it seemed very genuine. And 2, I think it brings up an interesting conversation, especially in light of what we were talking about yesterday. And so I was kind of rehashing my experience of going to the protest in Milwaukee on Saturday and taking my mom, who had never gone to a protest before. And so I got this email, and so bear with me as I read through it, but I'm going to keep it anonymous and not say who sent it. So here we go. Kristin, I heard a small snippet of your show today. You were discussing the No Kings protest this weekend. Sounds like you may have attended one yourself. Not sure what those protests were about, as we don't have any kings governing us right now. The left just doesn't like the outcome of the November election and wants everyone to know it. It is quite interesting how quickly liberals take to the streets and protest and or riot. It seems quite organized. That is in contrast to conservatives, who rarely are marching in the streets, no matter how bad the Democrats are or how bad the left's agenda is. Joe Biden was a terrible president. He was disliked by most on the right, and his policies were very unpopular with the right. His open borders were dangerous and treasonous. His student debt vote buying scheme was unconstitutional, yet President Biden acted like an authoritarian, and he did what he wanted. Rarely did we see conservatives take to the streets to express their displeasure at President Biden, President Obama, etc. They tend to not act out emotionally, as Democrats tend to do. That would be why the left still brings up January 6th. That is the one of the few times that the right took to the street. I'm not condoning what a small percentage of the crowd did at the Capitol. The vast majority of those in D.C. that day were there to support President Trump and engage in peaceful protest. Even many of those who were left inside the Capitol via open doors did nothing violent. Again, the right just does not feel the need to run up into the streets at the drop of a hat and protest over made-up things, such as claiming that Donald Trump is a king. As much as they dislike Democrat presidents and what they do to the country, they generally don't run into the streets and have a hissy fit. Sorry this got so long. I guess I'm just curious as to why liberals feel this need to always be in the streets protesting. We saw this during Trump's first term as well. Many Democrats refused to accept the outcome of the 2016 and were election deniers. Even Hillary falsely claimed that 2016 was stolen from her and Trump was not the legitimate president. Republicans can't stand Democrat presidents any more than Democrat can stand Republican presidents. But you don't see Republicans having this bizarre need to rush into the streets and let everyone know how unhappy they are. End of email. And I read this. There's things in here that I disagree with that I think are seen through a certain lens. But I'm reading it and I want to talk about it because I think there's a genuine question here. Like, I think this person is genuinely asking the difference. And I feel like I've been hearing this a fair amount. I think even when we talked to Bill McCoshen on Friday, he brought up this point as far as where were the protests when Obama was deporting people who's, still the deporter in chief as far as how many people he ended up deporting. And so I want to hear from you, first of all, as far as, one, do you agree? Do you think the left protests more than the right? And if so, why? Because I think my gut instinct is yes, as far as left policies in general, not just Democrats protesting Republicans, but when we think of policies, issues, marginalized groups, and where they tend to fall on the political spectrum, it does seem like the left, when you try to think of examples, is out in the streets more than I consider the right. And so I would love to hear from you of what you think about this. I also asked ChatGPT what it thought when it came to who protests more, liberals or conservatives. And I think you might be interested in the response it gave. But I'll give my take first as far as what I think the reason is. And I think it's the left tends to value collective action and social justice and systemic change. And I think that aligns itself more often with protest as a tool versus the right, which I think tends to think of and emphasize individualism and order and traditional institutions. And I think typically thinks disruptive protest feels less aligned with a conservative identity. And so, like, the left feels that protest is part of the democratic process, that is part of our country as far as our ability to do that and what the First Amendment stands for, versus the right seeing it as disruptive or radical unless they feel personally under threat. Which kind of goes with what Steve said last week, which I got some feedback on as far as him never have gone to a protest and what would get him to a protest. So what do you think? Do you agree that the left protests more than the right? And if so, why? 855-616-1620. Shoot me a text or give me a call, and we will get to that after this. And I will let you know what ChatGPT said on the issue. So stay with us on Point Taken.
All different types of injury lawyers advertise. Cartoon lawyers, bobblehead lawyers, and folks chasing ambulances with text messages. Our clients don't want or need such lawyers. Our clients know, like, and trust that Pasternak and Zergabel will help in their time of need. I'm Jeff Zergabel of Pasternak and Zergabel. Frank Pasternak and I are excellent personal injury lawyers in our community. If you need help after an injury, go to Pasternak and Zergabel at injurywisconsin.com. That's injurywisconsin.com.
WTMJ's John Mercure here. Will interest rates go up or down? We'll know much more June 18th when the Fed announces its next rate decision. Do you wonder how the announcement will impact your decisions, maybe your portfolio? Join Annex Wealth Management's chief economist, Dr. Brian Jacobson, for Instant Insight. 2 p.m. June 18th, Instant Insight is when Annex kind of goes live after important announcements like the Fed announcement to help explain what it means for you and for your money. It's free. Register now at WTMJ.com or events at AnnexWealth.com, June 18th, 2 p.m.
Hi, I'm Eric Brown, owner of Siding Unlimited, reminding you to double-check your home. Siding Unlimited is the proven exteriors professionals for 31 years. Family-owned and locally operated right here in Wisconsin. Call Siding Unlimited and visit SidingUnlimited.com.
Join the free smoothie party at Tropical Smoothie Cafe on Saturday, June 21st for National Smoothie Day. Tropic Rewards members get a free smoothie with bowl or food purchase. Terms and conditions apply.
We may be months away from winter, but it's never too early for the team down south to start hibernating. The Brewers head to Chicago to take on the Cubs.
Fly ball to center, and it is gone! Jackson Churio's got a dozen homers, and the Brewers have broken it wide open.
Our Brewers Radio Network game day coverage starts tonight at 6:30. We are the home of the Brewers, WTMJ.
We can change the world. We arrange the world. It's time.
Welcome back to Point Taken. I am Kristin Brey, and we are having a conversation based on an email I got yesterday, genuinely asking why liberals, the left, tend to take to the streets more often than conservatives. And, you know, I think there is, to a certain extent, we know that January 6th started as a protest. We know that there were, I remember back in 2020, the initial protest in Madison for the shutdowns, and I think they brought a gallows, and there were signs that said, "I need a haircut." And like, obviously, there's also the Tea Party, right? The Tea Party back when Obama's first term, there was a lot of protests then. So it's not totally one side versus the other that never partakes in protests. But when you put the big umbrella up of different types of protests, whether it's abortion or climate change or racism and Black Lives Matter, I would say there is more left-leaning protests that are organized than you tend to see on the right. And so I wanted to have a conversation about it as far as texts are coming in, I can see that I think a lot of people agree with this. But I'm more interested in thinking of why is that? Because if you remember last week, I forgot which day it was, but I asked Steve, because we were talking about the coming protests on Saturday, and I asked Steve, have you ever been to a protest? And he said no. And I asked him what would get him to protest. And his answer was something along the lines of, if someone personally in his life was being affected. And it was interesting because I got some feedback through DMs or emails of some people who were disappointed with his answer. But his answer didn't surprise me at all, because I think that is typically him as a conservative. I think it kind of falls into this conversation that we're having, is it is more of a tool for people who are looking for systematic change, or a tool for marginalized groups who don't necessarily have power or access to power to try to gain power historically. And so I'm going to go through some of the texts as well. But if you would like to call, if you have a thought on why this is, 616-1620. But I definitely want to hear from you because there's a lot of text coming in. And so I think this is an interesting conversation. And I'm not going to read the ones that are insulting or fairly shallow. If they're devastatingly clever, maybe I will read them. But I'm really interested for people who are curious and trying to seek the answer to this and actually giving thoughtful responses versus just paid protesters, endorsed Soros, et cetera, et cetera. But I did ask ChatGPT to try to summarize this. Now, we all know that ChatGPT sometimes just makes things up, but I was actually pretty impressed with the answer. So I had a very plain, neutral question, and I just put in, who protests more in the United States, liberals or conservatives? And this is what I got back. In the United States, both liberals and conservatives protest, but liberals tend to organize and participate in public protest more frequently and at larger scale overall, especially in recent years. Here's a breakdown. So they put liberals, progressives, and the left under one bucket and have some different bullet points. So more frequent protests, especially around issues like racial justice, climate change, women's rights, gun control, immigration. They tend to use protest as a core tactic in activism, like marches, sit-ins, street demonstrations, and are often centered in urban areas with a stronger protest culture and infrastructure. Now, conservatives. Fewer protests overall, but still significant, especially when, one, they feel power is being taken away, for example, in response to COVID mandates, gun right issues, or elections, or they mobilize around identity, so religious freedom, patriotism, anti-woke themes. Notable examples, Tea Party rallies, protests against COVID-19 lockdowns and vaccine mandates, and the January 6th Capitol, insert your word that you would like to call it, insurrection, protest, gathering. So that they quote some data. And in a 2021 Pew Research survey found that Democrats were more likely than Republicans to say they had attended a protest or a demonstration in the past year. And academic studies show liberal causes dominate protest turnout in volume, though conservatives are catching up in some regions and on certain issues. So in summary, liberals protest more often and in greater numbers, especially around systemic or national issues. Conservatives protest less frequently, but often with intense emotional or identity-driven motives when they do. So, what do you think? Did ChatGPT summarize it well? I think that was a pretty good summary. And I think it's often I think there was a text over here that said, on the conservative side, there's more of an effort to make government smaller instead of make government better. And I think that's kind of right, too, as far as the holding power to account nature of what a protest is and trying to make our politicians better versus the core tenet of we just want to be able to drown government in a bathtub. All right. I think we have a couple calls. We're going to take a break quickly. I'm going to go through some of these texts and read some of the ones that I think make the smartest points. And we'll be back on Point Taken after this.
Loyalty, family. Few things are more important. This is WTMJ's Steve Scafidi, and Loyal Family Renovations. They saved the day after a brutal storm in Oak Creek. Hail damage, yeah, I had a lot of it. But Jeff, Jake, and the whole team, absolute pros, made the entire process smooth as can be. Let's be honest, not everyone knows how to deal with adjusters. They handled all the questions, quick answers, top-notch customer service. In just 2 days, my roof was done. If storm damage hits, call the team that made it easy for me. Loyal Family Renovations. Visit loyalfamilyrenovations.com.
Summer in Milwaukee means a couple of things. Brewers baseball and live music. Get the best of both when the Brewers take on the Rockies June 27th, featuring a post-game concert by Nelly. Then the first 25,000 fans at the game on June 28th get a Pat Murphy Manager of the Year bobblehead, courtesy of Toyota. Get ready for a weekend you'll be talking about all summer. Get your tickets at Brewers.com.
Why settle for just a job when you could have a career in the exciting automobile industry? The Auto Dealers Association of Metro Milwaukee new car dealer members have service, technician, sales, administrative, and management positions available now. The first word in career is car, and one of the best places to find a great career opportunity is at an Adam new car dealer.
For current great paying job opportunities, visit adam.jobs. That's ADAMM.jobs.
WTMJ's Eric Bilstead here for QC Kinetics. The big focus in America today is on your health, right? So why aren't you feeling any better? Your knees always hurt, your shoulders keep you from exercising, and you're done with all the pills and the steroids, and you cringe at the thought of surgery. You've done everything, but the pain is always there. It's exhausting. This is when you got to call QC Kinetics. It's revolutionary treatment. It works to give your body long-term relief. Regenerative treatments takes your body's own healing power and helps and restore your damaged tissue. Call QC Kinetics today and get yourself a free sit-down. Talk to Dr. Justine Bennon. She's great. I've met with her. You can walk through the process with her. She explains it in a way that's understandable, and she can do the same for you. 414-285-3474. Call QC Kinetics today and get your life back. 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474. Call QC Kinetics today.
Brew Crew Tuesdays are back on June 17th.
Churio sends it deep to left, and there she goes!
Catch the Brewers on local TV as they battle the Chicago Cubs.
And Yelich launches one deep right center field. Forget about it. Oh, my goodness. Third
This edition of Brew Crew Tuesdays is presented by Delta Dental of Wisconsin. Tune in June 17th at 7:05 on Fox 6 in Milwaukee, or check out your local listings to watch the game.
Well, welcome back to Point Taken. I am Kristin Brey, and we are having a conversation around who protests more, the left or the right, and why. And so we have a caller, Brian from Watertown. Why do you think the left or the right protests more? What's your theory?
Well, again, as I told the screener, I'm not really sure who does more than the other, but I'm saying probably because they have more to actually protest. Otherwise, they wouldn't be protesting. But the other big thing I was commenting to him about was the deportations. And, the only ones that gave Obama any credit for those, for the deporting that was going on were other Democrats. The Republicans won't acknowledge the sheer numbers that he did deport. And even Biden, up until April, had deported more than Trump did. But those were being done legally, and the correct way. And the deportation is when you get sent back to the country of origin, not to some foreign country where you're in a prison. You have absolutely no freedoms. And again, it was being done legally. You had a chance to speak up for yourself, and you were actually charged with something, and you knew what you were being charged with. It isn't happening now, and somebody has to speak up for these people.
Absolutely. Brian, let me ask you, have you been to a protest?
No, I haven't.
No, okay.
I just don't have time.
You don't have time?
I don't have time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the call, Brian. I love your input. All right. So there's a lot of text on this. So I think throughout the show, because after the bottom of the hour news, we do have a guest, but I'm going to continue to sift through the text, and maybe we'll continue this conversation throughout today's show. But one that I did like, take their guns, them being the right, and I bet conservatives will protest in the streets. Different people fight for different things. And then another text said, look at the great protest movements of the recent past. Civil rights, the Vietnam War, abortion rights. Protests are an important form of democracy, allowing the masses to voice their opinion. This is not right or left. Another person said the right is more affluent. I don't know if that's true anymore, but the left may not have to work during the day. My roommate works as a bartender and went, left tends to be younger and likely more emotionally reactionary. The right doesn't like being told what to do and will jump at the opportunity to read the riot act to perceive the government is taking away their rights. Don't tread on me vibes. But yeah, I think this is very interesting as far as what kind of core characteristics or personality traits you have as a person that kind of leads you to be on one side or the other of the political spectrum, and your propensity to then want to attend a protest in one of these different ways. And so we will continue this conversation throughout today's show because it's obviously sparked a nerve with some people. So coming up next, though, bottom of the hour news.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. 2 economic snapshots developing negative. Consumer spending dropped last month after a sharp increase in April, says the Commerce Department. Polling the nation's home builders on sales conditions, the National Association of Home Builders, Wells Fargo, showing the 3rd lowest reading in 13 years. An early exit from the G7 in Canada has President Trump back in Washington, says he wants to closely monitor Iran-Israel fighting. More missile and drone attacks overnight, says ABC's Jordana Miller in Jerusalem.
All businesses are closed except grocery stores and a few little cafes. All the schools are closed. Everyone's home with their kids. And you're not really allowed to gather or go to a workplace, so there's not a lot of people on the street.
Israeli forces launched a series of strikes in western Iran today, says the Israeli military. An aide to Russian President Putin says talks to normalize relations with the U.S. are suspended. This is ABC News.
Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time is 10:31, 77 degrees and sunny in Milwaukee. I'm Greg Matzik. One person is dead following a shooting overnight in downtown Milwaukee. 29-year-old was shot near Valete and King just before midnight. No one is in custody, but police are seeking at least one known suspect. The Hop streetcar service returns following a crash. An SUV struck the streetcar and another vehicle near Milwaukee Street in Wells Monday afternoon. At least 6 passengers were on board the streetcar at the time. No serious injuries reported. The streetcar was not derailed. The accident comes after 2 of the Hop's 5 streetcars were already out of service, and just as the Hop has started operating its combined festivals line. And a hybrid cocktail lounge in downtown Milwaukee, recognized as one of the best new bars in the nation. Agency, a finalist in the Best New Bar category from the James Beard Awards. A bar in Puerto Rico took home the top prize as winners were announced Monday in Chicago. Agency opened in January of 2024, located inside the Double Dutch Hotel in Milwaukee. Milwaukee Business Journal reports the bar has seen a boost in business since being named a finalist by the foundation. Time for news about your money in the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. We've got a lot of red here as we hit the 10:30 mark. Dow is down about 105 points at 42,411. NASDAQ off about 80 at 19,621. S&P 500 is down about 25 points today at 6,010. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. It's financial planning at every level. For details, visit annexwealth.com. Taking a look at your roads, a WTMJ time saver traffic update. The crash that was off to the side of the road around North Avenue, 4145, that is now out of the way. You still got a bit of a delay there due to construction, but we're down to about a 3-minute delay going northbound from the Zoo Interchange to Good Hope. That's about a 5-minute difference from what it was about a half hour ago. So that is clear. You're still on the brakes a little bit starting at Watertown Plank Road. Coming southbound, a delay starts about 175. Things start to clear up around Burleigh, but about a 4-minute delay if you're moving southbound from that stretch. Otherwise, west and eastbound on 94, everything's operating smoothly. Tap on the brakes if you're headed 43 northbound about Brown Deer as construction, again, sort of tightening things, but relatively mild volume here at 10:30. Warm, humid today, high of 87 degrees, and a chance for some scattered storms. Humid tonight, a low of 65. Mostly cloudy on Wednesday afternoon. Rain is likely, some storms possible, with a high of 73. Right now it's 76 in Beaver Dam, 76 in Berlin, 82 in Beloit, and 77 at the Avenue. I'm Greg Matzik. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time is 10:34.
With an ever-changing inventory, you never know what great bargains you're going to be able to find at St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores. It makes shopping fun because the best finds are the ones you had no idea you'd even come across. And when they're at thrift store prices, it feels good. And it feels even better to know you're helping us help others. Shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
Are you worried about running out of money in retirement? Wondering about how to pay less taxes? Join me, Tony Drake, for the Retirement Ready Show live every Saturday at noon and Sunday at 7 a.m. on WTMJ 620 or 103.3 FM. We'll talk about smart strategies to help you retire with confidence. Don't miss it.
Drake & Associates LLC is an independent investment advisory firm that offers a variety of different investment vehicles. This commercial is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as individual investment advice. Drake & Associates LLC does not provide legal or tax advice. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.
Summer is finally here. We're outside and maybe noticing the condition of our old windows. Gene Miller here for my friends at Hometown Windows and Doors, your local experts in stylish, energy-efficient replacement windows. Boost your curb appeal with top brands like Pella, Anderson, and Marvin, tailored to fit your home, your style, and your budget. Plus, installation by employee carpenters. Wood, vinyl, fiberglass, all on display in their newly remodeled New Berlin showroom. That's Hometown with an E for your every window and door need. Visit hometownwindows.com today.
At Advent, nasal congestion and sinus infections can be solved with an in-office 20-minute procedure. Elsewhere, expect surgery.
Welcome back to Point Taken. I am Kristin Brey, and I think we're going to come back later in the show to our conversation around protests, who protests more, the left or the right, and why, because I certainly got a lot of texts on this one. And so, but coming back to our scheduled programming with our next guest, Dr. Matthew Fasciani is a social psychologist, author, and misinformation researcher. His new book is called Misguided, Where Misinformation Starts, How It Spreads, and What to Do About It. And it is out now?
Yes, it is out now. The official date was actually July 8th, but it's already popping up in local bookstores and Amazon. So apparently there's an early release that I didn't even know about.
There you go. All right. Well, before we get started, have you ever been to a protest?
I have. It's been a few years. When I lived in South Carolina, I think I went to one a while ago. Yeah. It's been a few years.
It's been a few years. All right.
Yeah.
So as far as misinformation, this is a big topic that I feel like comes up a lot. Even as we're talking this week, as the more information comes out around Vance Bolter in Minnesota, kind of the wildfire that gets spread when big events happen, whether it's public health, whether it is public safety, and with the power of social media, how misinformation, disinformation, propaganda can spread. So I guess just to go way back to the beginning, what drew you to researching this topic and dedicating your career to researching this topic?
Yeah, so it's been a while. It's been a long journey. I bounced around studying neuroscience and psychology and sociology, and I've always been interested in how people form beliefs and how different factors influence those beliefs. So this even started from my first class I took in psychology, learning about the Solomon-Asch conformity study. I don't know if you've heard of that before. It was a study like in the 50s where...
Not a doctor.
No worries. It was a fun study because they just had these people read these lines on the wall of different lengths. And it's a very simple task where you try to pick out which line is the same length as the one they picked to. So most of the time people get it right, like 95% of the time. It's very easy. But whenever a few people in front of you purposely give the wrong answer, you're much more likely to conform to what they say and give the wrong answer. So even though this is a very, very basic cognitive task that most of the time people get it right, you can see these early effects of social influence. And I always thought that was fascinating that something as simple as this cognitive task of like identifying how long a line is can be influenced by purely social factors. So I studied that in a few different ways as an undergrad, but actually went into neuroscience for a while. And I realized I really wanted to study this phenomenon and do it directly. So I ended up switching away from neuroscience into social psychology to dive into this. And that was like 2015 or so. So it's been an interesting journey this past decade to really study misinformation before it was everywhere in the news and then see it as it is today and try to understand it.
Well, and I guess that's a good follow-up question as far as if you started circa 2015, which feels like a prime decade to be studying misinformation and disinformation. But is this a newer, is it getting worse or are we just talking about it more?
I think we're talking about it more. I think misinformation has always been an issue. Really since the printing press, people have been spreading falsehoods. or even before that, like with oral storytelling. There's always been misinformation. There's always been social biases that influence how we process misinformation. The issue now is at scale. So the social media, AI can just make misinformation flourish. And we are getting more and more in these information bubbles where we're only seeing one side of a story, becoming radicalized, becoming polarized. And that link between polarization and misinformation is really striking, especially here in the United States.
So I was talking about this yesterday a little bit as far as less the misinformation part of it. But yesterday I was talking about the Van Spolter conversation that happened over the weekend as we were getting more information about who he was. And there is now a narrative that's been released into the wild that he was an appointee of Tim Walz, which he was, but Tim Walz doesn't actually know him. People putting out there that he targeted these two lawmakers because they had voted against extending health care benefits to undocumented immigrants. So like all these things have kind of been put out into the ether now. Some maybe on purpose, maybe some has just been shared because people thought it was true. But I feel like this is the most timely example we can have of something being put out there. And now how do you even get it back? Like once misinformation or disinformation is out there, why does it spread so quickly? And how do you rein it in?
Yeah, it's a big question for sure. So sensationalized emotional content tends to spread more on social media. So that's one thing. And then as far as nuance or fact checking usually doesn't catch up as well. So it's always a disadvantage. There's an asymmetry between sensationalized content that resonates with someone's identity, specifically their political identity. That's going to be reshared a bunch more than some nuanced fact check that comes afterwards. So that's the part of like social media.
You're saying fact checks are boring?
Yeah, fact checks are boring. I mean, they are, unfortunately, and they're 24 hours later sometimes, and by then it's too late. And it's really frustrating to see even these community notes programs on X and Facebook, where you'll see the misinformation getting tons of likes, and then you'll see the community note get a fraction of the likes, and that's just an unfortunate byproduct of that system. So the social media infrastructure doesn't really reward fact-checking and nuance, and it very much rewards sensationalism and appealing to people's identities. And I think that's really the critical part is like why we have this motivation to begin with to believe falsehoods.
So let's stop there. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll kind of go into the social science psychology of why we do this and why all of us are guilty of doing this. And so we'll talk more about that with Dr. Matthew Facciani, who is the author of Misguided, Where Misinformation Starts, How It Spreads, and What to Do About It after this.
We said no fact checking.
WTMJ's John Mercure here. Will interest rates go up or down? We'll know much more June 18th when the Fed announces its next rate decision. Do you wonder how the announcement will impact your decisions, maybe your portfolio? Join Annex Wealth Management's chief economist, Dr. Brian Jacobson, for Instant Insight. 2 p.m. June 18th, Instant Insight is when Annex kind of goes live after important announcements like the Fed announcement to help explain what it means for you and for your money. It's free. Register now at WTMJ.com or events at AnnexWealth.com, June 18th, 2 p.m.
From my family and myself, I would like to say thank you to Gruber Law Offices for taking such good care of us.
I would say thank you because you were so human and so much of a friend during the whole process.
I'm super grateful for them representing me and doing all that they did for me.
I would just say thank you for making me feel better.
That's why I'm here, to say thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all.
The Cane Table from Penny Mustard is more than just a table.
It's hosted countless brunches and long conversations with friends.
It's served as an emergency office on snow days or when the kids come down with the croup.
It's seen its fair share of crumbs between the leaves.
Or drool from the dog waiting for food to drop.
The Cane Table is made for signing important documents.
Holding family meetings.
And painstakingly piecing together puzzles.
It's headquarters for homework.
Craft projects.
Board games.
And the wrapping of various gifts.
The Cane's Encore chairs have been used to relax.
To build blanket forts.
Or to help reach something on the back of the top shelf.
It's not about food.
It's about memories.
So it's gotta last.
It's made in the Midwest. So it will.
For generations to come.
The Cane Dining Room Table with 6 Encore chairs starting at $61.97 at Penny Mustard.
Showrooms in Milwaukee and Chicago.
PennyMustard.com.
Better versions of what people want.
Penny Mustard Furnishing.
This change has leveled us up while being able to maintain the same quality of service that we've always provided, with no upfront fees and 1.9% real estate commission. We're proud to be part of the Century 21 family, so you can move fearlessly with the added confidence of top-of-the-line marketing for maximum home exposure. And that means more eyeballs and the real potential for the highest price for your home. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated. With the ability to market luxury homes on a higher scale than ever before, Century 21 Benefit Realty has taken a huge step forward to tap into a global network of buyers. Maximum exposure to spotlight your unique home with our fine homes and estates marketing so you can sell it for the highest price. And with no upfront fees and 1.9% real estate commission, you win. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated.
When you're due for tire service, visit richlawns.com for the location nearest you.
We'll give you free flat tire repair on every tire we install. No questions asked. I'm Brett Matchke with Rich Lawns. You're due for service.
Rich Lawns.
We are talking to Dr. Matthew Fasciani, who is a social psychologist, author, and misinformation researcher. His new book is called Misguided, Where Misinformation Starts, How It Spreads, and What to Do About It. So, beyond the social media of it all, because I think we can all agree that the share button is maybe the worst thing that was ever created. As a content creator, it's great because where people see your stuff, but it's also, as far as misinformation spreading fast, probably the bane of someone like you, who's like, this is why it's bad.
Well, the share and the infinite scroll. I think
the infinite scroll, yes, that too. But what is it about our brains that is so susceptible to misinformation, especially, and what kind of misinformation?
Yeah. So I think it really helps to think in terms of social identities and how those provide us with a sense of meaning and self-esteem. So we all have like hundreds, maybe thousands of identities, and these help us provide us with like meanings and structure and help us think about the world in a way that makes sense. So it reduces uncertainty. And you can think about the roles associated with a particular identity. So like if you're a parent, you want to take care of your kids. If you're a student, you want to learn things. And when you do those actions, it makes you feel good. And you can connect with other people that share those identities. If you're a sports fan, there's a lot of community around sports. It feels good when your sports team wins. So there's a lot of benefits to this, a lot of structure that, since we're such social creatures, that allows us to connect with other social creatures that share those meanings that we have. And it's all very positive things. The issue is whenever we become so dependent on a narrow set of identities that we are so... we're deriving so much meaning and self-esteem from just a very narrow lens of these identities and values. So whenever we encounter information that conflicts with it, it feels like a personal attack on our entire self. And that's really what my book dives into is understanding where that bias comes from. Because it's one thing to have this confirmation bias of like, we want to confirm the attitudes that we have. But it's like, where do those attitudes come from? And what can make them stronger on us? So really, the short answer is we need to diversify our set of identities so we're not so dependent on a very small set of them that feels like such an attack when they're challenged.
So, I mean, obviously, when I hear this, the biggest sense of identity is, not biggest, for some of us, right? Mm-hmm. For some people, the identity of your politics, right? Mm-hmm. And that is a big one that gets reinforced a lot. But it makes sense as far as being a parent, being a student, being a Wisconsinite, being a Milwaukeean, all of these different things. But how does one diversify their identities? Yeah. So I think that's the challenge, is getting outside of our bubbles and meeting people who are different than us. Because an extreme example would be if all of your identities completely overlap. So let's say you have a political identity, you have a religious identity, and they don't have any conflict. All the values and meanings completely overlap 100%. And let's say all your friends and where you volunteer is also in that same space. So then any challenging information that challenges that type of value or meaning you have to that identity feels like your entire self-worth is crumbling. So in order to counter that, you need to diversify and have lots of different sets of self-esteem from these various identities. So
whenever we think about what that would look like in practice, I mean, sometimes it's very simple, like getting a variety of hobbies and just not being so stuck in politics. Like politics is such a huge
Being
one.
politics not being a hobby, that's not a healthy thing to have as a hobby. Okay.
It could be one hobby, but it's just like whenever it's 100%. Again, that's an extreme example, but if it's 100% of how you see yourself, and then whatever your political identity is, you see information that counters that, saying like the politician I really identify with, you read something bad about them, then that feels really bad to you personally. Whereas if you're more diversified and politics is a smaller part of how you see yourself, you're able to rely on different identities that provide that self-esteem and self-worth. So really trying to branch out, meet different people, people of different political perspectives is definitely a good way to do that as well. But trying to do that, and that's the broader challenge is like, how do we do that in our country where we're so isolated in our bubbles all the time? And that speaks to like the macro issue with it too.
So let's put a pause there as far as what to do with the macro issue, as we kind of just talked about what you can do personally in your own life. If you have any questions for Dr. Matthew Facciani, 855-616-1620, shoot over a text. We're going to take one more break. And when we come back, we'll get to your questions and we'll get to the macro question as far as what we can do as a society. Stay with us on Point Taken.
All types of injury lawyers advertise. Cartoon lawyers, bobblehead lawyers, and folks chasing ambulances with text messages. Our clients don't want or need such lawyers. Our clients know, like, and trust that Pasternak and Zergabel will help in their time of need. I'm Frank Pasternak of Pasternak and Zergabel. Jeff Zergabel and I are excellent personal injury lawyers in our community. If you need help after an injury, go to Pasternak and Zergabel at injurywisconsin.com. That's injurywisconsin.com.
Here's to sweet summer days together with friends and family in Wisconsin. To discovering magic in every moment.
Hey, Mom, over here.
And to reconnecting through a world filled with wonder.
Wow.
Here's to supper club celebrations and dancing until the sun goes down. Here's to those who Wisconsin. Plan your summer getaway at travelwisconsin.com.
You know, most mulch is reclaimed from landfills, but Erickson's mulch is ground from whole trees. Yep, we process the mulch ourselves to keep the prices nice and low, and use only premium colorant so the beautiful look of new mulch lasts. At Erickson's, we never skimp, and that's why first-time shoppers become repeat customers. Erickson's Landscape Supply. High-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection. How do we keep our prices so low? That's easy. We've removed the middlemen. Yep, most landscape suppliers have a couple of them in there, and that's okay. But each one of those men in the middle means a higher cost for your mulch, decorative stone, flagstone, and boulders. Feel free to check around. For the quality of our products, you won't find better prices. Erickson's Landscape Supply. High-quality mulch and stone for a whole lot less. Commercial or residential, visit ericksonslandscapesupply.com to see our entire selection.
The Brewers Radio Network salutes all those who serve or have served our country.
Vince Vitrano here, saluting my friend and WTMJ partner, Adam Hinsky, the Bugman, U.S. Army Specialist. Adam did 8 years in the service, 2 tours in Iraq as an all-wheeled vehicle mechanic. Proud to support his veteran-owned business, the Bugman in Queen Bee. Thank you, Adam.
Salute the Troops is sponsored by Discount Liquor, Mission 94 Firearms Education Center, and Great Midwest Bank.
Join the free smoothie party at Tropical Smoothie Cafe on Saturday, June 21st for National Smoothie Day. Tropic Rewards members get a free smoothie with bowl or food purchase. Terms and conditions apply.
Find furniture for life from Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield, Greenfield, or downtown Milwaukee.
Hey Wisconsin, it's construction season and the Wisconsin DOT wants to help you safely navigate work zones in your area. Check 511wi.gov or download the free 511 app to see current road work, closures, detours, and camera views on your route. Wherever your travels take you, know before you go with 511wi.gov. That's 511wi.gov. And remember, know before you go. Always park the phone while driving. Sponsored by the Wisconsin DOT.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee from the Annex Wealth Management Studios. This is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station.
We have a couple more minutes with Dr. Matthew Facciani, who's a social psychologist and author of Misguided, Where Misinformation Starts, How It Spreads, and What to Do About It. So we were just talking about what we personally can do to arm ourselves from being be a victim of misinformation, and we were talking about diversifying your identities. What can we do at a macro level to rein this in?
Yeah, it's a big question because, again, it requires a lot of moving pieces. So I think diagnosing some of the problems is important. One is the lack of opportunities to meet lots of different people. So we just talked about how important it is to diverse your identities, but if you don't have opportunities to actually meet different people, then that's a challenge. And there's all this work talking about how we're in this loneliness epidemic and people don't have opportunities to meet different people. So that's a big issue. It's like we have this lack of third spaces where people go home, they go to work, but they really can't go to a shared third space and meet lots of different people. And that's a challenge. So ideally, we would be able to fund opportunities for people to meet lots of different people, be integrated in their communities, and have a lot of opportunities for that outside of right now. It's like going to college is a place where you can meet lots of different people. If you live in a city, maybe you'll meet lots of different people, but especially in more rural areas and smaller towns, there might not be shared community spaces where you can actually meet people. So I hope that we invest in that in our future. I think it's really important.
All right. And then final question. I'll keep it more vague, but for people, when you have people in your life who seem to be more susceptible to believing something that's not true that they saw on Facebook or Twitter or are sharing things, like what is the best way to approach that with the person? One, after they share it, but also just trying to not make their defenses go up, but actually have a conversation with them about it.
Yeah, so there are some strategies that can help reduce those defensive biases. Whenever I think about this, I never go into it thinking I'm going to change their mind. I think it's more about reducing those defensive biases so at least your perspective gets heard and absorbed. And the first baseline is establishing mutual respect. And also, I think it's really helpful to do it in person. Via text or even a phone call can be really challenging. And trying to understand, again, how their identities shape their beliefs. So we just talked about how self-esteem is deriving, if people derive so much self-esteem from a narrow set of identities, it can be really challenging to reach them. So try and understand like why this matters to them so much and what's going on in their life, I think can be helpful. Like, are they going through a tough time and they found this radical group that provides them with structure and meaning and makes them feel better about themselves? And you can kind of try to unpack that a little bit. But those are some big questions. So even before you get there, even just the language you use can be really helpful. So instead of asking like why you believe something, you can try to ask how they came to this conclusion and walk through the mechanism of their beliefs. So like a step-by-step process on how this policy that they support helps Americans, for example, instead of just them, why do you support it? It's like, I support it because it's good. That's kind of like a binary that doesn't help the conversation. So trying to rephrase how we even speak to them and just try to understand like where they're coming from, listen about their perspective, and have this mutual understanding that can hopefully reduce polarization on both sides, because then you can also learn about your own biases as well.
Empathy and understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Great. All right. The book is Misguided, Where Misinformation Starts, How It Spreads, and What to Do About It. Available for Amazon bookstores?
Amazon, all bookstores. It's actually going to be at Boswell Books. I'm actually giving
Love Boswell.
I'm giving a talk there July 9th.
Perfect.
So,
all right. Dr. Matthew Facciani, if you want to see him in person, you can see him at Boswell Books on July 9th. And thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. News is next. We'll be back after that.
Hi, I'm Tony Drake from Drake & Associates. One of the biggest questions retirees face is, when should I take Social Security? Should you claim it earlier for a smaller check or wait for a bigger payout? The wrong move could cost you thousands over the course of your retirement. And here's something most people don't realize. Social Security is only one piece of your income puzzle. If you don't coordinate it with your other retirement assets, you could pay more in taxes or even reduce your benefits without meaning to. At Drake & Associates, we help hardworking Americans like you make sense of their Social Security options so you can keep more of what you've earned. This isn't just about picking an age. It's about having a strategy so your retirement income lasts. That's why I want to send you a free retirement toolkit along with a copy of my book, Get Retirement Ready. Inside, you'll find easy-to-understand strategies to help you maximize Social Security, lower taxes, and build a reliable income plan. Text SS to 414-897-9522 to claim your free copies while supplies last. If you're unsure about your Social Security options, don't wait. This is your chance to get clarity and confidence about your retirement income. Text SS to 414-897-9522. Secure your future today. Text SS to 414-897-9522. Drake & Associates, helping you retire with confidence.
Drake & Associates LLC is an independent investment advisory firm that offers a variety of different investment vehicles. This commercial is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as individual investment advice. Drake & Associates LLC does not provide legal or tax advice. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.
It's the biggest door in your house. Time to give it the attention it deserves. Vince Vitrano here talking about Lifetime Door Company in Brookfield. Updating your garage door increases the value of your home. It's the first thing people see, and it's the best return for your money on investment. At Lifetime Door, if you have an emergency, they'll come out 7 days a week to service existing garage doors and openers. 5% off any service or install at Lifetime Door Company in Brookfield. Get started now, 262-783-4004, lifetimedoor.net.
I'm Jim Token, president of the Automobile Dealers Association of Metro Milwaukee. Nobody can keep your car running smoothly like an Adam new car dealer. Adam service technicians are factory trained and use original factory parts backed by a warranty. Best of all, you'll find competitive pricing equal to or even lower than independent shops. A well-maintained car delivers maximum gas mileage and saves you money. Call an Adam dealer today because you're always better off at an Adam new car dealer.
Get an oil change and safety inspection today.
This isn't just a rivalry. It's Brewers Cubs. And it's going down tonight in Chicago.
Curveball struck him out swinging.
Our Brewers Radio Network game day coverage starts tonight at 6:30.
And Trevor McGill strikes out 3 to secure the series win.
We are the home of the Brewers. News Radio 620, WTMJ, Milwaukee.
At 11:02, it's 80 degrees. Today, warm, humid. Storms tonight, a high of 87 before we get to dinner time. From the WTMJ Breaking News Center, members of Congress attending emergency security briefings after the killing of a Minnesota state lawmaker.
A list found in the vehicle of Minnesota murder suspect Vance Bolter included the names of politicians well beyond Minnesota, including Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
They called and said the FBI that my name had been on the list.
Some politicians named in the list have canceled public appearances, but Dingell says,
I'm going to keep fighting for the people that I represent.
Against the advice of her staff, she went ahead with a town hall meeting last night in her district. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
And there's another Wisconsin connection to the Minnesota lawmaker shooting suspect.
Property records show Vance Belter owned a building in Brillion for 4 years. According to our news partners at NBC 26, he purchased a building on Water Street under the name of his business Revo Formation Ministries, Inc. in November 2007. He bought it from Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church, which had previously operated its school there. Church officials say he didn't appear to do much at the building, only clean it out a bit before selling it to High Tech Electrical Services, Inc. in 2012. Jessica Gatso, WTMJ News.
And utility crews are raising awareness of a looming issue concerning Wisconsin's power grid.
17 years after the pesky invasive beetle was first discovered in Wisconsin, the emerald ash borer is still wreaking havoc on the state's tree population, with tens of thousands of so-called danger trees hanging precariously over power lines across the state. In 2025 alone, We Energies expects to trim trees along more than 3,000 miles of power lines across Wisconsin. By volume, fallen trees still account for the most electrical outages across the state. In Milwaukee, Adam Roberts, WTMJ News.
Time for news about your money. The WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Everything in the red, although recovering a little bit. The Dow is down 70 points. The NASDAQ is 46. The S&P 500 is down 13 points. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Sports, traffic, and weather up next. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 11:04.
Streaming services, retail chains, and tech giants are all adding Plus to their names. It's fairly obvious they were inspired by Hassellus mattress. Hassellus showrooms are employee-free, plus unbeatable prices on Tempur-Pedic, plus free next-day delivery, plus 60-month interest-free financing on select Tempur-Pedic with approved credit, plus a $300 MasterCard gift card with your Tempur-Pedic mattress. Maybe we should change our name to Hassellus Plus. Find an employee-free showroom near you at Hassellus.com.
For over a century, local broadcasting has evolved with the needs of the community. We move past the stigmas of opinion journalism and bring the most relevant news online, on air, and on the go. You have trusted us with your news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Trust us to keep moving with you. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress local broadcasting is here to stay.
Hey, this is WTMJ's Steve Scavidi for QC Kinetics. Big focus in America today on your health, and you're determined to look beyond pills and steroids and surgery to feel your best, right? I want to talk to the person who's in pain right now, or maybe it's someone you love. I've got chronic elbow pain. Maybe someone you love is dealing with that issue. You've done everything they told you to do. The pain just comes back. You're exhausted, but you don't give up. You want to meet someone who can fix that for you? Let's meet with Medical Director Dr. Ashley Caravelli and her team. They'll explain how their regenerative treatments take your body's own healing power and help restore your damaged tissue. These are well-respected protocols that include potent and powerful cellular-level treatments. QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics has helped tens of thousands of people, so many of them right here in Milwaukee. No masking the pain. They're going after the very source of it. Yes, you can say goodbye to that chronic pain and live your best life. Find out if you're a good candidate. The consultation is free. Just call QC Kinetics at 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474.
Time for a WTMJ Sports Update from the Gruber Law Office's One Call, That's All Sports Desk. The Brewers are in Chicago for their first series with the NL Central leading Cubs since early May. Rookie pitching phenom Jacob Mizorowski will make his second outing for the crew on Wednesday. Coverage tonight begins at 6 o'clock with Brewers warm-up on WTMJ. Let's check out the roads with your WTMJ Time Saver traffic. Pretty quiet so far. Couple issues on the shoulders, actually. 94 southbound near County K, the right shoulder is blocked as you head away from the city. And also in the Kenosha area, right shoulder blocked near Highway 50 due to a disabled vehicle. The WTMJ 5-day forecast is going to be a warm one today. Humid, high of 87. Evening storms are possible. Tonight, more scattered showers. Only gets down to 65. Tomorrow, heavy rain is possible in the afternoon, a high of 73. Thursday, partly cloudy, a high of 80. Friday, partly cloudy, a high of 83. And on Saturday, hot and humid, a high of 89 degrees. Right now in Madison, mostly sunny and 77. In Green Bay, mostly sunny and 80 degrees. In Milwaukee, lots of sunshine and 80 degrees. I'm John Mercure, Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 11:08.
Broadcasting live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios at the Avenue. It's time for Point Taken. Here are your hosts, Steve Scafidi and Kristin Brey.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the 11 o'clock hour of Point Taken. Have two great guests coming up this hour. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Carmen Petrie from Sojourner Family Peace Center about why she is advocating for our state legislature to make room in the budget for a new public safety building here in Milwaukee. I know we recently talked to Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley about the same issue. But if you are unfamiliar with Sojourner Family Peace Center, it is the largest nonprofit provider of domestic violence prevention and intervention in Wisconsin. I've interviewed Carmen many times. She is an angel amongst us, and so I'm excited to have her back on the show. And then we're going to be talking to President of Wisconsin Policy Forum to talk about Jason Stein, to talk about the data that they've collected and looking into what dependencies Wisconsin has on federal funding as some of those cuts loom, and what it says about our state funding and whether or not our state lawmakers should be a little bit more concerned than I think they've indicated as far as federal funding being cut. So that is coming up at the bottom of the hour. And then we will also get back to our conversation around who protests more, the left or the right, and why. Got a lot of texts about that in our first hour. This was based off of a conversation that was sparked by an email I got yesterday basically asking that question, asking why does it seem like liberals, to use their term, are in the streets more often than conservatives. And I thought it was a really interesting, genuine conversation to have as far as what it says about political ideology and how we make our voices heard. So we will get to that by the end of the show as well. But I first just wanted to, this is obviously a very high stakes developing story of what is happening in the Middle East right now. I think we all know that President Trump left the G7 summit yesterday as things were escalating and sent out a truth social last night. I think that's how you refer to it, as a truthy, telling people in Tehran to evacuate, which I don't know if you've ever lived in a city that has close to 10 million people in it. The closest I've lived in Los Angeles, I've lived in Brooklyn, not Manhattan proper, but trying to imagine what it looks like when millions of people are trying to get out of a dense urban city and how scary that is there's some footage I've seen of just miles and miles of car traffic backed up in Tehran last night. But I heard this morning as far as the kind of the crossroads that we're at. This is from the Playbook podcast from Politico, and this is Jack Blanchard speaking.
What we have now is a president facing an absolutely critical decision, maybe the biggest decision of his presidency. Does he throw military might behind what Israel is doing, and very specifically what Israel wants to do, which is destroy this very deeply buried nuclear enrichment facility that's stuffed inside a mountain inside of Iran that only we believe American bombs could get at, and Israel wants America to dive in and do that. And at that point, America is going to war with Iran, and that it would be a very, very big deal indeed. Or is President Trump going to try and use this moment of maximum leverage over Iran to get them back to the negotiating table and sign some sort of agreement that avoids any sort of U.S. military action?
So like I said, I'm trying to watch in between, during commercial breaks, the chyrons on the news stations to see as things are developing. But the stakes are incredibly high, obviously. Just even politically, as far as there's a huge MAGA base that said no new wars. And so politically, I don't know where Trump lands on this as far as actually sending U.S. troops to get involved in this. But outside of the online conversation and the political ramifications for this in the United States, just wanting to have a little bit of a touchstone of the reality for people who have loved ones in Israel or in Iran. I woke up to a dear friend of mine who lives here. He's a dentist in Oak Creek. He left Iran 20 or 25 years ago when he was an adult. He didn't leave as a child, but and still has family there. And I wanted to just play what he posted on social media this morning as a reminder that as we talk about whether or not we should do this and the political ramifications of doing this, that there are civilians who are bearing the brunt of the decisions that these old, yes, they're all three of them are old, whether it's Khamenei or Netanyahu or Trump, men who have the nuclear codes, basically. So this is my friend just expressing his concern.
Hey, so I know a few of you have been asking me about Iran and asking hard things there. The short answer is not good. As much as we all like to see all the Ayatollahs gone from Iran, it's still really hard to see the city that you were born in and then you grew up in burn to ashes. We all know one thing that Israel does really good is turning cities into ashes, so it's just hard to see that. I still have a family there. I have an aunt, I have an uncle, I have cousins, I have friends. They're safe for now, but things are getting worse by the hour, by the minute, and we don't know what's going to happen. In my basement, I have this little skyline of Tehran, and if I go to sleep tonight, I don't know tomorrow that skyline is going to be the same or not, most likely not. And that hurts. And yeah, But I see on Instagram people are posting, oh, let's pray for the people, for innocent people. I don't pray. I don't believe in God. I feel like organized religion is the main cause of human suffering throughout the age. So that's out of the question. But I do have hope, because without it, what else is there? So hoping for better days. What else I can do? I'm too far away from everything. So, yeah.
So on that note, let's hope for better days. Let's hope that this can de-escalate, because a lot of civilians will get hurt in the meantime. All right. When we come back, Carmen Petrie will join us to talk a little bit more about how we can keep people here in our community a little bit safer. This is Point Taken.
WTMJ, Steve Scavidi here. Will rates go up or down? We'll know more on June 18th. That's when the Fed announces its next rate decision. If you're wondering how the Fed's announcement will impact your decisions, from buying a new home to planning your investments, join Annex Wealth Management's chief economist, Dr. Brian Jacobson, for Instant Insights at 2 p.m. on June 18th. Instant Insight is when Annex goes live after important announcements, like the Fed's announcement, with their reaction and explain what it means for you and your money. When it comes to your financial future, a bit of expert insight could help you understand what's going on. Visit WTMJ.com or events at AnnexWealth.com. Register now for Instant Insight. The Fed in the markets, June 18th at 2 p.m., live after the Fed makes its announcement. Register now. Visit WTMJ.com or events at AnnexWealth.com and register now for Instant Insight. The Fed in the markets, 2 p.m., June 18th, live after the Fed makes its announcement. Join Dr. Brian Jacobson, Annex Wealth Management's chief economist.
A buck doesn't buy much unless you're spending it at Griffin. For just $1 over cost, you can buy brand new tires from us. This is Jim Griffin. Any major brand, $1 over our cost with free tire repair and lifetime rotation. We'll even show you the invoice to prove it. Our only requirements, we put them on for you. Buy one or the whole set. The dollar deal from Griffin. Milwaukee, Waukesha, Fort Atkinson, and Jefferson. Griffin. The buck stops here. The deals on tires don't. That's Griffin.
Not combinable with other tire offers. Get the help you need Saturday morning with How To Radio. At 7, it's the WTMJ Fix-It Show with David Nason, featuring this week's guests, Gaydish Foundation and CertaPro Painters. At 9, plan your dream vacation with the Fox World Travel Show. And at 10, get financial guidance during Money Talk. Contact Annex Wealth Management for an unbiased review of your investments at annexwealth.com. How To Radio, Saturday mornings on WTMJ.
Welcome back to Point Taken. I am Kristin Brey, and last week, 2 weeks ago, we had Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley on the show, and one of the many things we talked with him about was the fact that Milwaukee desperately needs a new public safety building. It would cost more than $300 million to have maintenance and repairs on it, so there is a big push for a new facility that would cost about $500 million. And the hope is we can get that from the state budget. And so one of the things we often think about when we think of the public safety building is obviously the lawyers who are in there, some of the people who are being charged with crimes being in there. But one thing we might not think is how the public safety building would affect victims of domestic violence. And so I'm very happy to have my friend Carmen Petrie, CEO of Sojourner Family Peace Center, which is the largest nonprofit provider for domestic violence prevention in Wisconsin, here in studio with me.
Hi,
Carmen.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So make the connection for people of why funding a new building has the downstream effect on the people that you work with.
Well, I want to give credit to the county exec for taking this up. We've known for a long time that the building is in disrepair and needed to be improved for many, many years. It's a complicated and confusing complex. So if you need a restraining order, you're going to the 7th floor of the courthouse to meet with our staff. We've been there since 1985.
Oh, I didn't realize you have staff in this building.
Right, we do on the 7th floor, and we've been there since 85. So you go for your initial, and then you go for your final hearing 2 weeks later. So you're going into court. So that's on the civil side. You may have a family court issue, and you're a survivor of domestic violence. You might have a criminal issue, and you're at the complex. And so it's confusing, complex, not friendly, and you're going on one of the worst days of your life, right? We should make that easier for people to access with dignity and respect and efficiency.
How does a new building provide all those things?
Well, I think you could reconfigure it in a way that it was easier to access. Parking should be better. I've heard of people being followed by abusers in the complex. Our staff have been followed. MacArthur Square parking complex is very difficult, dark, scary, some people would say. And, we should have better access. We should have easier access. So instead of having to park, walk a long distance, get on an elevator, go to the 7th floor, maybe we put those pieces on the 1st floor of the complex that you can get in and out of very quickly and efficiently.
So is the expectation, say the money comes through, is this something that Sojourner would be involved with? Like you were just saying, there's different suggestions of how this could be designed better for victims and people who are accessing the buildings for a variety of different reasons. Like how many stakeholders would end up being part of the design process?
We've already been part of the conversation, and that's a good thing. We've had, what we have not done yet is I'd like to do focus groups with clients to get their opinion, survivors who have used the complex. We also had a client who was murdered years ago in the complex. So safety is really critical, easy access. I'd love to hear from survivors what their thoughts are. We've been part of the conversation with the design team.
That's great. What has the conversation been? Obviously, we know that there was some movement last week with the Joint Finance Committee when it came to education funding and tax cuts. Have you been part of these conversations with lawmakers?
We have not with lawmakers, but I've done focus groups. I've done an individual. I have a person involved with the design team. I did an individual interview with one of the architects. I support a new complex and would testify or go on record for that because I think citizens in this community deserve that. I was at the health department when they redesigned neighborhood services. It was 3rd or 4th floor in the health department. They moved it down the 1st floor, and it just was easier to get to. So you had people building things in the city, able to park, get in, get their permits, and get out. I think it's the same concept. But we need safety to be embedded into the easy access. As I said, survivors are visiting this complex sometimes for many days at a time. If you're in a criminal trial, you're sitting in a homicide trial and your loved one has been murdered, you're there for several weeks getting in and out of this complex. It needs to be more efficient, more effective, safe, have dignity embedded in it. And I don't feel like we have that now. It's an old building designed for a different time. We need to rethink the complex.
All right. Our guest is Carmen Petrie, who's the CEO of Sojourner Family Peace Center. Let's take a break really quickly and continue this conversation. And also, there's a 50th anniversary coming up this year for Sojourner. So let's talk about that after this on Point Taken.
Hey, this is Steve Scafidi for Advent. I had some snoring issues that kept my wife up at night. That led to poor sleep and a lot of tired mornings on the radio, and nobody wants that, trust me. Put it simply, my nose wasn't working the way it should. I decided to go to Advent for a quick 30-minute visit, one of their great facilities, talk to a bunch of their doctors. They really put me at ease. After a really simple sleep study at home, in my own bed, they determined the root cause of my problem had to do with my sinuses and nasal passages in my breathing triangle. I didn't even know I had a breathing triangle, so I went to see Advent. After a short procedure done in office, I'm back to breathing well, and my wife and I are both back to sleeping through the whole night. The best sleep we've ever had, that could be you. If you struggle with restless nights like I did, take the time to see how Advent can help. To find out how breathing well and sleeping well can make your life and your nights a whole lot better, go to AdventKnows.com, schedule an appointment today. Because Advent knows, when you breathe well, you live better.
Set sail this June for a boundless bounty at Potawatomi. Come aboard, and you might win a share of $300,000 in cash and prizes. Just play with your rewards card for entries. Prize drawings on Thursdays. Boundless Bounty this June at Potawatomi Casino Hotel, Milwaukee. Your win is waiting. More info online. Must be 21 and a rewards member to play.
Hey, John Mercure here. Colders is kicking off summer with a 3-day flash sale. That means 3 days of huge savings on furniture, appliances, and mattresses. You don't want to miss out on this exclusive limited-time sale at Colders. From June 17th to June 19th, stack your discounts store-wide. Save 60% on furniture and mattresses, plus take an extra 10% off. That's 60 off plus 10 off on sofas, sectionals, dining sets, outdoor furniture, mattresses, and more. Don't forget about appliances. Save an extra 5% on appliances. Colders guarantees the best price in kitchen and laundry appliances from all your favorite brands like KitchenAid, Samsung, Whirlpool, Frigidaire, and more. I know I've shopped at Colders just recently. Don't miss out on Colders' 3-day flash sale only from June 17th to the 19th. Stop by one of their showrooms in West Dallas, Oak Creek, Delafield, or Grafton. They've got the best showrooms and the best sales staff. Or shop online at Colders.com.
Step up to quality furniture. Get more for your money at Colders.
We may be months away from winter, but it's never too early for the team down south to start hibernating. The Brewers head to Chicago to take on the Cubs.
Fly ball to center, and it is gone! Jackson Churio's got a dozen homers, and the Brewers have broken it wide open.
Our Brewers Radio Network game day coverage starts tonight at 6:30. We are the home of the Brewers, WTMJ.
Welcome back to Point Taken. I am Kristin Brey, and we are talking to Carmen Petrie, CEO of Sojourner Family Peace Center, and why she is advocating for money to be budgeted for a new public safety building in Milwaukee. So to wrap up a couple of the different things, because I gotta be totally honest, knock on wood, I have never been arrested. I have never needed to go to court for any being the survivor of anything or the perpetrator of anything. So I know I am the majority, I think, people who don't understand what these buildings, how they're supposed to function, and why a better design helps the people who do have to access them.
So let's hope it stays that way.
Yes. Really.
The other thing I would say is, if you need a marriage certificate, you got to go in and out of this building.
I did have to do that.
Right?
Yeah,
and
I did have to do that.
Things like that. I think there are ways that you're exposed to people who might have hurt you, defendants in cases that may be transported to and from the courtroom. That can cause trauma. We need to rethink respite areas for people who are involved in civil criminal court where there are safety issues, and there are absolutely no family or child-friendly areas in the courthouse. Rethinking the complex would allow us to build a center that's built for modern times. The courthouse is beautiful, but we really need to rethink the whole complex. What are people coming for? How is their experience when they're with us? How do they get in and out with safety and efficiency? So that's my piece of why I'm supporting it. And survivors for years have had to go, and it's a very traumatic experience going into a confusing complex.
Got it.
So,
all right. Well, I don't know if this is, I don't even know how to frame this, but it is Sojourner's 50th anniversary this year. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
It's one of those things where you hope this is the kind of organization that if only you could be out of business because the services weren't needed anymore, right? That is the ideal, and yet it is not. So that's why it's kind of weird. It's like, oh, happy anniversary, but you have been doing incredible work for 50 years. And so what are some of the things that are planned for this year?
I think we're very fortunate. You said it exactly right. We want to be here for people who need us, but we don't want to be here because we want violence to be ended in all the ways that it's impacting people. We have our Be the Light event, our anniversary, September 12th, Friday at the Baird Center. And so we're inviting people to come and celebrate with us. We're going to be uplifting the voices of survivors, doing some 50th anniversary videos of people who were around for the last 50 years and honoring the people who really built the agency as it is today, and then hopefully talking about our vision for the future for the next 50 years uninterrupted is how I say it, because survivors deserve, whether you're a woman, a man, or a child, if you're being hurt by violence, you deserve to have services that restore you to safety and well-being.
So I know the last time we talked, the uncertainty of federal funding is certainly front of mind. Has there been any more certainty for you, or as far as how you guys are navigating?
You know, we lost funding when VOCA was reduced last year. We lost some money in the budget this year. But I think the environment being so volatile and uncertain is very difficult. There's a lot of challenge around the Office on Violence Against Women and funding that comes down. I think the more uncertainty we live in, the harder it is. This work is already hard, but to do it in an environment of uncertainty makes it even more difficult. But to date, we're holding our own. We have supporters that have stepped up. We're inviting people to donate their time, treasure, or talent to us. It's critically needed. And Sojourner also lives in an ecosystem with other organizations who are already, we're hearing news, are closing their doors one day a week. And that just means less services for survivors.
So if you would like to get more information on the 50th anniversary or Sojourner in total, you can go to familypeacecenter.org. Carmen, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you. It's always good to see you.
All right, news is next.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. The back-and-forth missile and airstrikes continue between Israel and Iran, the U.S. moving more military assets to the region, and President Trump returning from the G7 summit in Canada a day early, huddling with his national security team today. Iran firing off more missiles today, so far intercepted by Israel's air defense systems. ABC's Jordana Miller is in Jerusalem.
Everyone here in the region, wondering what President Trump's next move will be, since it could dramatically impact what's happening, here on the ground.
The president says he wants a permanent solution, saying Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. Ukraine says at least a dozen people were killed in Russian air and drone strikes, one of the largest attacks in the 3-year war. One drone slamming into a residential high-rise in Kyiv. Retail sales fell sharply in May, signs consumers are pulling back on spending as uncertainty over President Trump's tariffs continue. A deadline for reciprocal tariffs is less than a month away. This is ABC News.
Outdoor Living Unlimited WTMJ News Time is 11:31. I'm John Mercure. One person is dead after a shooting overnight in downtown Milwaukee. The 29-year-old was shot near Valide and King just before midnight. No one's in custody, but police are seeking at least one known suspect. A dairy farmer from northeast Wisconsin, Adam Faust, is suing the Trump administration for discrimination. Faust alleges the federal government is illegally denying financial assistance to white farmers in favor of continuing diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. He says these are holdover programs from the Biden administration. And a hybrid cocktail lounge in downtown Milwaukee is being recognized as one of the best new bars in the nation. Agency is a finalist in the Best New Bar category from the James Beard Foundation. Agency opened in January 2024 and is located in the Double Dutch Hotel. Time for news about your money. The WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. All the markets are down, although they've recovered a little bit. The Dow is now down 57 points. The NASDAQ is off 46. The S&P 500 is down 16 points. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Let's check out the roads with your WTMJ Time Saver traffic. It is pretty quiet. The system is green. That's good news. One issue, 4143 East, beyond the ramp from Loomis. The right shoulder is blocked due to a disabled vehicle. How about your traffic? The WTMJ 5-day forecast, that would be your weather. How about your weather? We just did traffic. Partly cloudy and warm today, a high of 87. Evening storms could roll in. Tonight, some could be heavy, a low of 65. Tomorrow, heavier rain is likely, a high of 73. On Thursday, partly cloudy, 80. On Friday, partly cloudy, a high of 83. Saturday, hot and humid, a high of 89 degrees. Right now, it's getting steamy out there. In Madison, it is sunny and 79 degrees. In Green Bay, partly cloudy and 80 degrees. Here in Milwaukee, it is sunny and 80 degrees. I'm John Mercure, Outdoor Living Unlimited WTMJ News Time, 11:33.
Looking for new floors but tired of the pushy sales pitch? Vince Vitrano here recommending Hunt's Flooring in Greenfield, local family-run business where the team treats you like a neighbor, not a number. It was actually one of my neighbors who recommended Hunt's to me. No pressure, no gimmicks, just honest advice, beautiful flooring, and help every step of the way. From hardwood to pet-friendly carpet, find the perfect fit for your home and budget. Visit the showroom or start your project now at huntsflooring.com. Hunt's Flooring. Flooring you'll feel good about.
A Blaine's Farm and Fleet original story.
Why is everyone coming on their riding mowers and UTVs?
I figured all the neighbors could use a break from yard work, so I invited them for
a ride-on lawnmower movie?
Or, as I like to say, a movie.
We've got the value you need to do things your way, like 200-count boxes of blue shop towels, just $9.99, and signature licensed automotive accessories 20% off. Rewards members save 25%. Blaine's Farm and Fleet, being original.
Are you worried about running out of money in retirement? Wondering about how to pay less taxes? Join me, Tony Drake, for the Retirement Ready Show, live every Saturday at noon and Sunday at 7 a.m. on WTMJ 620 or 103.3 FM. We'll talk about smart strategies to help you retire with confidence. Don't miss it.
Drake & Associates LLC is an independent investment advisory firm that offers a variety of different investment vehicles. This commercial is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as individual investment advice. Drake & Associates LLC does not provide legal or tax advice. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.
Welcome back to Ask Hassleus.
How do you get pee out of an old mattress?
By trading in that old mattress for a new Beauty Rest or Sealy Posturepedic.
But that'll cost a lot of money.
Not at Hassleus Mattress. Through Monday, trade in your old mattress and get additional savings of $248 off a queen and $348 off a king. Plus, next day delivery and haul away of the old mattress for pee.
What was that?
Sorry, I meant for free.
Sure you did.
Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you at Hassleus.com.
Welcome back to Point Taken. I am Kristin Brey. So, we all know that the conversation is continuing in D.C. around the reconciliation bill going through the Senate and what will end up getting passed. And so the conversation around the reconciliation bill has obviously been around federal funding cuts, obviously also with DOGE and how much the federal government is spending and how that trickles down to the states. And so when we've had Matt Smith on from WISN on Mondays, the interviews he's had so far with Republican Wisconsin lawmakers is when he asks, are you worried about federal cuts? The answer has largely been no, we're not really thinking about that. We're not really putting that into our calculus for our state biennial budget talks. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. But Jason Stein, president of Wisconsin Policy Forum, joins us now because their recent paper, or their most recent paper, called Federal Funding Cuts Loom, looks into how much we as a state rely or don't rely on federal funding. So welcome back to the show, Jason.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I guess, I'm assuming for all the reasons I just laid out was why this was important to dive into, to kind of look at the numbers as far as what federal funding does Wisconsin get, how much of it, and who does this affect? Is that kind of the motivation behind it?
Exactly. We don't know what is going to happen yet at the federal level, but we can sort of talk about what is the federal government's role in the state and, what are the areas that could be affected and what would that mean?
And so if you lay the framework so far as where Wisconsin is with how much money we do get from the federal government, we get less. Do we get less than we pay in or more than we pay in?
Well, we get more than we pay in. Almost every state does right now, and that's why we have a federal deficit and debt, and it's something that I think everyone should have concern about.
Mm-hmm.
And we certainly don't detract from that. At the same time, Wisconsin also receives much less than the typical state. So in 2022, according to figures from the Rockefeller Institute of Government, Wisconsin received about $14,700 in federal payments per state resident. There are states like Virginia, Maryland, Alaska that get approaching double that. And so we're in the bottom 10 states nationally, and that's long been the case for Wisconsin. So, we lag most other states in receiving federal funds, but at the same time, there's still a huge important thing in Wisconsin, nearly a quarter, they add up to almost a quarter of personal income in the state. So, big changes to federal funds in the state could still have significant effects.
So what are the major programs that federal funding goes towards in Wisconsin?
The big three are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Each of those programs has more than 1 million participants in Wisconsin. They're to some degree they're overlapping people. When you think about Social Security, you're talking about on the order of $30 billion a year in payments. Medicare and Medicaid are less, but they're still, from, let's say $7 to $13 billion a year. So, if you're making changes to Social Security, you're talking even a 1% change to that program in Wisconsin would be hundreds of millions of dollars. When you're talking about Medicare and Medicaid, a 1% change could be in the tens of billions of dollars for those programs. So those are some of the big ones. Other ones include defense nationally is not as big in Wisconsin. We just don't have as many big military bases. Other programs include food stamps, higher education, a number of programs there, including research at the University of Wisconsin and other higher ed institutions, grants to K-12 schools, and then grants for roads and bridges and transportation. Those are some of the big ones in the state.
So if the funding for any of these programs gets cut, is it something that has ripple effects that everyone feels, or is there certain groups that specifically are going to feel the brunt of this?
It could certainly affect some groups more than others. So when we talk about, the average federal spending in the state, it really varies widely by individual how much that affects them. So, when you talk about the federal government's direct spending on programs like Medicare and Social Security that are for a specific beneficiary, you could have individuals in Wisconsin who, retired individuals who are receiving up to $100,000 plus of benefits in a given year, if they're receiving Social Security and they have significant medical claims. And then you could have individuals that are not receiving any direct payments or direct benefits from the federal government. So it really varies widely the degree to which individuals could be affected.
And so as the conversations move forward, if we were to say the Joint Finance Committee in Wisconsin were to finish our biennial budget before this reconciliation bill is finalized, what happens if there ends up being a gap, like a funding gap? And is there ways to retroactively for the state to decide to go back and fund things where there's now missing funds that the federal government used to invest in?
I mean, the big impact that could be at the state of Wisconsin level for the state budget is Medicaid. That's like an order of magnitude bigger than most of the other federal programs that affect the state. So Medicaid is on the order of a $7 to $8 billion federal funding to the state of Wisconsin each year, more than 1 million Medicaid recipients who receive coverage through. It's a joint program, both state and federal, and the state funds about 40% of it typically, and the federal government funds about 60%. So that's where you could see your biggest impact. But there could also be impacts in areas like education or higher education. There's a number of federal programs that would affect public universities like the University of Wisconsin as well as the technical college system in the state. But I would say Medicaid is really the one to watch, both because there's actually been proposals to cut that program, unlike Medicare and Social Security, and because, again, for the state government, there's a significant state taxpayer component of that program.
Got it. We have about a minute left with you, Jason, but obviously Wisconsin Policy Forum is a nonpartisan, neutral research entity, and so you are neutral on the proposed federal changes. But with the deep dive into these numbers that you guys published, what do you want people to take away from it?
I think we don't detract from the fact that there is a significant federal deficit and debt that needs attention, but at the same time, it's worth people paying a lot of attention to these programs because there is this really foundational federal role in the state. And, whether we're talking about the veterans hospitals, whether we're talking about, federal contracts that go out to, companies like Oshkosh Truck, there's a significant federal presence in Wisconsin, and it does matter what's going to happen at the federal level. Last thing is, I think probably the most significant thing to watch so far, as I mentioned earlier, have been the proposed Medicaid changes. And we've written about that both in this current report that's available for free on our website, as well as we did a big study on Medicaid that we published back in September that your listeners can also
I
check
remember
out.
that one. I think I interviewed after that one as well. But the
I think
current
that's true.
one,
I think that's true, yeah.
the current
Good
one,
memory.
the current report is federal funding cuts loom. He is Jason Stein, president of Wisconsin Policy Forum. Thank you so much for your time today, Jason.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more after this.
WTMJ's John Mercure here. Will interest rates go up or down? We'll know much more June 18th when the Fed announces its next rate decision. Do you wonder how the announcement will impact your decisions, maybe your portfolio? Join Annex Wealth Management's chief economist, Dr. Brian Jacobson, for Instant Insight. 2 p.m., June 18th. Instant Insight is when Annex kind of goes live after important announcements like the Fed announcement to help explain what it means for you and for your money. It's free. Register now at WTMJ.com or events at AnnexWealth.com, June 18th, 2 p.m.
From the biggest stars to the greatest moments, Behind the Bucks is Bucks history like you've never heard it before. Go behind the scenes of the Emmy-nominated Giannis documentary. Get the real story of the blockbuster trade for Damian Lillard. Hear the origin of Bucks in 6. It's all on Behind the Bucks on the Bucks Plus audio network, presented by Gallagher, your trusted insurance broker and HR and benefits consultant. Available now on bucks.com/plus, the Bucks app, and wherever you get podcasts.
Are you living with dry AMD? If so, you could be on the road to geographic atrophy, or GA, a condition that leads to retinal cell death and permanent vision loss. But with Izervay, you can
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay slows GA progression by targeting a key source of retinal cell death, which may help preserve your vision longer. Izervay, or Avastin Capted Pagel, is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com. Paid for by Astellas Pharma.
At Fleet Farm, we're committed to offering a wide variety of everyday essentials at the best prices guaranteed. Like 40 pounds of Diamond Crystal Bright and Soft pellets for just $5.69 a bag. All Western footwear is now 25% off, in-store only. And get a Blackstone 28-inch Omnivore griddle with hood on sale for just $299.99. Stop in for these specials and more at your local Fleet Farm. And check out all our weekly deals at fleetfarm.com.
For over a century, local radio has evolved with the needs of the community. From politics to pop culture, we keep you informed, bringing you the most relevant news, online, on air, and on the go. You have trusted us with your news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Trust us to keep moving with you. Text radio to 52886 and tell Congress local broadcasting is here to stay.
Hi, I'm Eric Brown, owner of Outdoor Living Unlimited. Outdoor Living Unlimited is Wisconsin's #1 TimberTech decking installer. We install anything decks and more. Stop by Outdoor Living Unlimited showroom and visit OutdoorLivingUnlimited.com.
All right. Well, this show flew by today. We still got a couple segments left before we hand it off to midday news. But I did want to come back to our earlier conversation around protesting and who protests and why. And I picked out one of the texts that we got that I think is another, as she said, this is a great topic. Another topic. Myself and many friends are curious about why do we celebrate Black History Month, Gay Pride Month every year, and we give one day a year to the men and women who serve our country every day and to those who have given their lives while serving their country. Then when President Trump sets up a celebration for the Army's 250th anniversary, the left made it sound like it was all about his birthday instead of celebrating the true reason for the celebration. How about a month-long celebration every year for our servicemen and first responders? Well, just for fact-checking, I know that we said earlier in the show that fact-checking is boring, but May is actually officially recognized as National Military Appreciation Month in the United States. And then November is National Veterans and Military Families Month. obviously, I think you referred to Memorial Day, but then there's also Veterans Day in November. And so I don't know. So there are, I mean, think about it. What if we look up what today is? Everything there's peanut butter day. There's like 5 different cheese days and beer days. Like everything gets some kind of observance. So I definitely think that there is, I know in May there is first responders have different weeks. The police force has an observance, a week-long observance. I think that's why Steve does his salute to service in May typically. So there are celebrations and month-long celebrations for the military, for veterans, for maybe not a month for police officers or first responders, but they certainly have different days and weeks that are recognized for them. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because they exist, but there's more media attention to Black History Month or Pride Month. I certainly don't think it's because there's more people who are, I don't actually know what the numbers are as far as living veterans and currently serving military troops, that one would get more attention than the other. And I don't know if it's because of the nature of them, where Black History Month is supposed to be a celebration of trying to spread more information around the impact that Black Americans have had that we're not always taught. And same thing with Pride Month. I don't know. I mean, I would agree that there is a difference in media attention for different month-long observances, but it doesn't mean that they don't actually exist. So wanted to put that out there. But yeah, like I said, we're running out of time. So we're going to take one more break and then wrap up the show after this.
Hey, get in. What? Who are you? I'm future you. Constipation with belly pain still coming back? Yeah. Mia, our doctor figured it out. She said it's irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, and Linzess could help you get ahead of it.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
Our goal is to provide patients with the strongest, most effective, and safest options in this exciting field of regenerative medicine.
Dr. Mitchell Scheinkup, National Medical Director at QC Kinetics.
The idea that you can avoid a joint replacement is very exciting.
And that's from a surgeon who's done thousands of joint replacements, but who now believes there's a better way.
Regenerative medicine, as we understand it today, gives lasting pain relief, improved function, without surgery, without drugs.
Under Dr. Scheinkup's leadership, QC Kinetics medical professionals treat patients every day with the most advanced protocols in natural biologics. Literally tens of thousands of people all over America.
I've been doing research on regenerative medicine for 2 decades. This is the future of medicine.
Call QC Kinetics for your free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474. 414-285-3474.
Dan, what are you doing?
Taking a closet for a test drive.
A test drive?
Here at Inspired Closets, we have our own cutting-edge immersive design experience.
That's right. Envisioned by Inspired Closets uses AR technology that's sort of like test driving a car.
Virtually walk into your custom closet at scale before anything is even built.
You can even make changes in real time, so your environment will adapt to any design revisions you make in that moment.
Get started today at InspiredClosetsMilwaukee.com.
Inspired Closets, a wife and husband team.
Academic Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 255368.
At Wisconsin's own AccuNet Mortgage, our closing costs are typically $1,000 to $3,000 less than the banks or the mortgage guys with the Rocket for exactly the same rate. Find out how much you can save at ACCUNET.com.
Why settle for just the job when you could have a career in the exciting automobile industry? The Auto Dealers Association of Metro Milwaukee new car dealer members have service, technician, sales, administrative, and management positions available now. The first word in career is car, and one of the best places to find a great career opportunity is at an Adam new car dealer.
For current great paying job opportunities, visit adam.jobs. That's ADAMM.jobs.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee. From the Annex Wealth Management Studios, this is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station.
Jazz, I don't know if you're watching the text line, but someone called out your great bump music today. You're a big fan of what you've been playing, so keep up the good work.
I try.
We are doing just fine without Steve. We still have a handful of shows before he is back next Wednesday, but today was really fun. Like I said, this conversation, I think it was a healthy one as far as who protests and why. And there were so many texts, I still haven't gotten a chance to read any of them. But if you have thoughts, feel free to shoot me an email at kbrey@goodkarmabrands.com. Like I said, that whole conversation was spurred from an email. So if you ever have thoughts about the shows or topics we should cover, feel free to be in touch. I know Steve loves getting email. I love getting email. As long as it's nice. I don't love getting the, oh, you're just a libtard, insulting emails. Those aren't great. I have pretty thick skin, but I'd rather not get those, you know. But yes, as always, feel free to slide into DMs or shoot an email with feedback on this show or any show. If you missed any part of today's show, you can always listen to it as a podcast, which you can find at WTMJ.com, or if you just text POINT to 855-616-1620, we will send you the link. And that on that page, there's the link for Spotify or Apple and all the different places that you can find your podcast, and you can subscribe to it. And then it will just be in your feed, and you can listen every day. It's only an hour when it's on the podcast instead of 2 hours on air. A big thanks to our guests today, Carmen Petrie, Jason Stein, and Matthew Facciani. Lots of interesting guests coming tomorrow as well. We're going to have a legal hour, first hour tomorrow. Yes, Jim Santel and Mary Kuhnmensch will be here for my birthday to talk all things that are happening in the U.S. Supreme Court. I know there was some news today that we didn't get to with the Wisconsin Supreme Court regarding lame duck laws. So we will get to all of that with the two of them for the first hour tomorrow. And then we're going to be talking about special education funding with the executive director from Disability Rights Wisconsin. And Thomas Jacobson's going to be here, who's a former Milwaukee attorney who is taking on Netflix over the Dahmer show from a couple years back. And so I'm excited to have that conversation. But as always, we got to pass it off to Midday News. So thank you for everyone who texted in and called in today. Great show, and we'll see you tomorrow.
It's Gina Della. You've heard me define what makes Pella windows and doors different. Let me introduce you to the woman behind